Hello, my name is Peter Raymer, and today we're going to talk about how to save error messages in D365. Now, you may be familiar from a past video or experience how to run the info method or warning method or error method, and how to present those messages to the screen when a user is using this system. You've probably seen error messages yourself, but in this lesson I want to show you how you can actually scrape those different messages from the info log and actually store them in a custom table for your own purposes. That's really useful because maybe you've got some custom code where you're calling base Microsoft code, and that base Microsoft code has a lot of infos or warnings or potential warnings that could happen, and it's great that those are printed out to the screen, but maybe you want to consolidate them into one place. You don't always want the user to have to scroll through those error messages in the present moment and review those and look for errors. Especially you may have a batch job. If you are running a batch job, those info and error and warnings do get saved off and you can review those. But maybe you've got a different kind of batch job where you want to save those messages to a log screen or a log table and show those in a workbench, making it a lot more easy for someone to review error messages based on a particular stage record and move forward. So let's jump in and this will make more sense. So I've got a runnable job right here called test log error message basic. And essentially what I'm going to do is I have this code that is called info log line, and what this will do is it will get out the number that's currently associated with within that info log. So I get a starting line number. Maybe that starts at 0, maybe that starts at a higher number, but I'm recording that number. Then I'm going to have some code that runs some base process, or it could be a custom process. In this case, I'm not actually going to run anything. I'm just going to explicitly call info, warning, and error, and each time I do, it's going to write that message to the info log as well as increment a number so that by the time we get to this line here, I can actually look back and say, okay, let's scrape the info log and read out every message that's occurred between this line of code and whatever's happened since and this line of code. So let's take a deeper dive on that. So if I go to definition on this log messages method, and I've posted this in the article so you can copy and paste it yourself, but essentially all we're passing in is the original line number when we started this process, and then the system's going to scrape that info log for all messages since then. I've also passed in a rec ID so we can help associate these different log messages to a particular record. So what we do now is we call info log line once more, and now we're getting the last line number, and really we just loop through all info log messages since when we started to right now. And depending on whether we have this line, we're either going to grab the oldest first, that's what I usually prefer, or you can grab the most recent first if you use this line. But then essentially we're going to call two important methods. We're going to call this construct method and then dot message, passing in that current line number, and essentially this will get us out the message associated with that line number. Additionally, we're going to call infolog.level, passing in that current line number. This is going to get us the exception level, meaning was it an info message, an warning message, or an error message. And so then we can have a little switch statement on this that says if it was an info, great, grab that out. If it was a warning, grab that out, and then if it was an error or anything else, pull that out as well. You don't have to have your code exactly like this. This is just a nice way to break it apart and give some added text to help identify which type of message it is, especially if you're pulling all those messages into a single string and you don't have like the color coding of the info warning or error to see what type it is. So this stores it all off. It's going to then append it to one long error message that you could use. But in this case, we're actually going to call the log method from a previous video. So go check that out on how to create a custom log in D365. And we basically pass in the message as well as which rec ID it's associated with. So if I go to definition on this method, all this method is doing is it's declaring a new table buffer for this custom log table that I've got. It sets the message field to whatever message I passed in. It sets the log rec ID to whatever rec ID I pass in, and then I insert it. And again, this is really useful if you've got a workbench or an integration so that you can see all the messages tied to maybe a particular staging record. And so yeah, that's really how it works. Is now when we run this, it's going to scrape these three messages and append them to this log. So if I were to look at what that would look like, I can table browse this custom log table, and these last three right here are an example of me running that job. Is I just see those three messages saved off in this particular table. But what's better is this can be used in some even more complex scenarios. So sometimes you're running a process and an error happens at runtime. You don't have an explicit info warning or error that you could go back and read in the code. Maybe you've got a divide by zero issue or a issue where you're trying to insert a duplicate record. Those error messages can be saved off as well, and that's super valuable. So let's look at a slightly more complicated example and how that works. So in this case, same deal. I'm saving off the Infolog line number, and then at the end of my process, I'm calling log all the messages that have occurred between here and here and save it to the table. And so then in between that, I'm going to call some pretend process, right? This might be an integration, maybe you're processing journal records, whatever your process is, you can put that here. In this case, I created a few example processes where some errors might occur or warning, just so you can see what I'm talking about. So first, I'm doing the same example as before, where I'm just spitting out or printing out these error messages for an info warning or error. Those we know will get captured. Next, as another example, let's pretend we've got an empty cust table record, a customer record that we're looking to check, hey, are we okay to insert that record or update that record? Well, it's empty, so there's probably lots of things wrong with it, mandatory fields that are supposed to be set where there's not explicit code necessarily to check that. So I'm going to call validate write, and I'm going to let both the checks in this validate write as well as all the properties on the fields run and basically record all the messages that come out of that. So that's another one that we can save off, and you'll see that in a second. The third kind of example is I'm going to actually try to insert that cust table. I'm going to set it to a number, an account number that I know exists in this demo data in the USRT company, and this is going to cause a duplicate key error. And normally that would have to get thrown all the way back to the calling program. It would stop everything. In this case, I can wrap it in a try catch, and the system's going to catch that error message. I'm going to log my own additional error message, and all of that will get saved to this table. And then lastly, just as I said before, we could even have a runtime error. So here I'm purposely creating a divide by zero runtime error. this would throw an error. In this case, it's going to catch the error message and then still log it to the table. So let me hit start real quick, and maybe we debug through this example real quick, and you can see how it's going to log to the table. Essentially, while I'm starting this up, there's two scenarios where we might get error messages, and two approaches how we might handle it. If we're, say, invoicing a single sales order, if there's a problem with one of the sales lines, we probably want to stop everything, roll back. We don't want to invoice some of the sales lines, and not all of them typically. So we want to roll back, right? We want to stop, show the user the error message. The user's going to know it's associated with that one sales order, and we don't continue on. Other times we might be trying to process a bunch of sales orders, or again, maybe we have records in a staging table that came from an e-commerce website. They're all queued up in the staging table, and we want a batch job to just loop through each of those orders, create a sales order if it can. If it can't, record and save off what went wrong, but then continue moving on. That's where a try-catch branch is super useful, and the ability to save off these error messages, even the ones that we can't explicitly see in the code, that's really useful so that the system can process as much as it can, and a user can later use a workbench to review the errors, fix them, and then reprocess them quickly. So all right, our code's running. We've got our Infolog starting number at 0 at the moment. Later it'll be a different number, but if we step into this code, we can kind of see what happens. So we can see the infos printed out, a warnings printed out, an error, so pretty straightforward. But then let's say we call this validate write. When we call validate write, it's actually going to do a bunch of different checks, and we didn't even get to see those, right? Necessarily get printed out. You can see them in this output window here, but we're not seeing them right on the screen. If you're a developer reviewing the code, it's harder to see all of what just happened, but we'll see those in a second. Next, we're getting into this third scenario. I'm going to call insert. And then the debugger actually in this case is pretty smart. It's going to show us that we did receive an exception, cannot create a record in this table. This customer record already exists. So then I can go into this catch statement. I can add my own error message if I want and continue on. And then lastly, I get to this divide by 0 error. The denominator is 0. I can't do that. It's going to even show me, yep, you got an exception of attempted to divide by 0. So then let's just continue on. It'll catch it and move forward. So that part really wasn't remarkable, right? We ran some process. We don't know what happened. Now we want to really save those without having to be a user that looks at the screen. We want to save those to a table. And so if I step into this log messages table, this is where it gets interesting, right? Now my last line number is 10. Essentially 10 messages have printed out since we started. We're going to for loop through each one of these, and I can see my first message, some info message. I can see that the exceptions of type info, and it goes through each one, logs the message to this table, appends it to just this all messages string. You don't have to have that if you don't want to, and then it keeps going through it. So to be a little faster, I'm just going to push F5 and we can look at each message. So this is the second message, some warning message, we expect that, some error message, we expect that. Now we can see some of the messages that occurred during our validate write on the customer. It says the field customer account must be filled in. It wasn't set. Now it says the currency must be filled in. That's a current mandatory field. The customer group is also a mandatory field. So we see that error message. And then credit limit is 0. That's not allowed to be that way if parameters are set up a certain way. And then here, this runtime kind of error message is occurring when we tried to insert this record. We're violating the unique index on this table. We're able to see this error message and actually save it off. So that's really useful. Same thing too with this divide by 0 error right here, as well as our custom message. And so we can still see that these get thrown to our screen. We could see these, but again, the power in this is to save it off to a table where we can then review it later. So if I were to come back here and rerun our table browser, I can see these different error messages that have shown up now in order of what we want. It's capturing the runtime error messages as well as the ones that we explicitly see in screen. We can add this as a data source to a workbench. We can then join this table to our main table, our staging table of what we're logging, and see all those error messages. So again, there's maybe specific use cases where you're going to use this. It's not going to be when you have a very direct process, maybe clicking a button, but it's useful when you're processing a lot of records or when you're running some complex process and you really want to save off what you expect could be a bunch of different error messages. So I hope you learned something new today in how you can scrape this Infolog line and make use of that. So thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate you watching. If you liked the video, click the like button. I also invite you to push the subscribe button as well. If there's other topics you would like to see a video on, please post in the comments and I'll see what I can do. I hope you learned something new today. Thank you.